Hello, lovely people. It's another wonderful day, and we have another opportunity to learn something new in literature or literature in English. Like I promised in our last lesson, today's class is going to be centered around doing detailed thematic analysis, analyzing the theme of a story. It could be a poem, it could be a prose or a drama. Specifically, today I want to take you through how to do thematic analysis with a specific theme or topic in mind. Now, usually in our examinations or reading of books and others, we come across certain themes and we lack the expertise in appreciating that theme. So, what we are going to learn today is what to do. I'm going to feed you with what you have to do if you find yourself in such a situation. Now, if you look on the screen, the first thing that I expect you to do or that you are expected to do if you are to do thematic analysis is to define the theme clearly. Defining the theme clearly simply means you have to be precise, you have to be concise, you have to be specific. Now, like you already know from our previous lesson, theme has to do with the centermost idea. When we talk about the centermost idea, we are looking at the message that the poet, the message that the playwright, the message that the novelist wants to convey to you. Now, as a beginning, or your first paragraph, which is the introductory paragraph, you should be in the position to define or to explain what that theme you have in mind that you want to appreciate or analyze means. So, for example, if you are looking at the theme of power, let me be quick to say that power itself has to do with subject matter. Theme of power has to do with the aspect of power that the writer is talking about. But I just put it here, theme of power as an example. You should be able to let the examiner, to let your readers, your prospective readers know that you understand the key word in your theme because that is the startup, that is the starting point. So power is the ability to control or influence others, others or the behavior of other people through dominance and resistance. So this is my way of making whoever that will read my analysis of the theme of power or the theme of the struggle between a dominant and a less dominant nation, understand that I know what I want to write about, get the basic rudiments, the fundamental knowledge of what power is all about. So always bear in mind that the first thing that you are expected to do is to define the theme clearly. Explain it if possible. Now, after a definition or an explanation of the theme, well, I expect you or you are expected to identify where the theme appears in the text. Now, you are not to state that if you go to page 1, if you go to line this, there's an instance of that theme there. No. But as a preparation for you to start your write-up, this is what I'm teaching you today. How to prepare, how to be armed with the right information to be able to do thematic analysis. So identify where the theme appears or the theme is located. Now you can do this by, if you look on the screen, you look for dialogue. A dialogue, as you might be aware of, is a conversation between two or more people. So you should identify dialogues, you should identify character behaviors. Character behaviors here embodies the actions and the inactions of characters, what they do, what they've done, what they are doing, what they have refused to do. Then conflict. Conflict here basically means disagreement between people, but in literature, conflict is a bit broader, where you can look at disagreement within the individual, which looks at internal conflict, when people struggle within themselves in making certain decisions, sorry, when people wrangles within themselves in trying to understand what to do next, or in trying to resolve a situation that they encounter or they are faced with. That is conflict. We also have external conflict. That has to do with conflict between an individual and other individuals, between an individual and society, and between societies. I think I'll have to create a lesson where I will explain to details the various types of conflict. But basically, this is what I mean by looking out for the kind of conflict that exists. They help you to understand. If you are looking at the struggle for power as a team, then you can conflict here could be maybe individuals fighting among themselves. So you are basically getting an instance or where your team appears, or nations fighting among themselves, or individual fighting against a group of people, depending on what the writer writes about, what the text is all about. But try to look for where there are conflicts, then look for symbolisms. Symbolism simply means using words to mean more than themselves. Sometimes writers use symbols. They try to, instead of calling somebody a dictator, they try to use something else. A good example is down there, Animal Farm. Animal Farm is a novel or a story that is centered around the struggle for power, that's centered around power and dominance, and the writer did a good work by using animals as symbols to stand for humans. So when you read Animal Farm, you are going to encounter the intelligent pig or pigs, how they manage to take over the farm, how they manage to deceive other animals to drive away the humans. We are going to look at how the humans started handling the farm. So these are all symbols, using something to stand for more than itself. Pigs or animals representing humans. Then the narrative styles of the writer or the playwright or the poet. With narrative style, now we have narrative poems as well. So you can get different narrative styles. You can get the first person point of view. You can get a third person. You can get an omniscience. You can get a limited. I will take time to explain all these things into detail. That is if you request for it. Then a good example is there. You have to look at the setting too. So the setting here too talks about the place and time. All this gives you an idea about your theme. When you're able to identify this, it drives you towards comprehending deeply the theme that you want to analyze. And when you start the analysis, it becomes very easy. The next thing that I expect you to do after you have identified where the theme appears is to analyze how the theme develops. Now you have been able to look at dialogues, you have been able to look at narrations, you have been able to look at conflict and all the other necessary ingredients that drives you towards where your theme can be located in the text. Now the next thing that you are expected to do is to analyze how this thing developed. You know, in writing stories, there's always the rising action, the exposition, the rising action, the climax, the anticlimax, or the falling action, then there's a resolution. So there's always a way the theme will develop, and there are some questions that will guide you to be able to do this analysis. Which characters represent or struggle with the theme? So once there's a theme, there will definitely be characters that symbolically drives the theme, carries the theme, or struggles among themselves, and their struggle is what helps to develop the theme. How does it evolve throughout the text? The evolution of the theme talks about the development of the theme. There are some themes that starts at the beginning, gets lost in the middle, and appears at the end. There are some themes that only appears at a particular place, minor themes, There are some things that run throughout the test, major things. So you should always be able to answer the question, how does it evolve? How does it develop throughout the test? What events highlight its importance? This is also key. There are some significant events that will highlight the importance of the theme. In animal farm, one very significant event that highlights the theme of power or the struggle of power or selfishness is that 7 rules for the farm that started getting lost every day or every time one rule get lost until it became one rule. All animals are equal, but some are more equal than others. That is driving towards the selfishness or the struggle for power. Then what literally devices reinforces it? You should be armed now with the meaning of the various literary devices. At least I have been able to take you through quite a number of literary devices. So I think that you should be in the position to be able to do that. Now, after that, I also expect you to gather textual evidence. Now you have finished doing all the preparatory work. You have finished identifying all the things that needed to be identified. So the next thing that is expected of you is to start putting the pieces together. You'll be able to locate where the theme can be found in a text. You'll be able to look at a good analysis of your work, though your official work. You'll be able to do an analysis of how the thing develops. Now you have to gather textual evidence. So quotes, scenes, sayings, all these things that will lead you to it, you have to gather it. Some examples, what characters say if they need be, how characters behave if they need be, some unique or for granted scenes that are introduced that will help you. Then you have to explain and analyze whatever evidence or textual evidence or evidences that you've gathered. Now, when you do that, you have to sometimes look at the author's perspective. The perspective of the author is also very important. You consider his message, his tone, harsh, gloomy, sad, the story outcome, that is the resolution. Symbolism and ironies are devices that I mentioned already. Then when you do all these things, then you have to now consider the relevance of the theme. How connected is the theme to modern societal development? How connected is the theme to personal experiences or culture and historical issues? Now, there are some examples that I'm not reading because I believe you could read them yourself. Now, considering the relevance of the theme is a way of cementing your understanding of whatever you have done or you are doing. Now, let me explain how to consider relevance of the theme. Considering the relevance of the theme here simply means that relating the theme to real life events. If you do not do all the things that I ask you to do properly, it will be difficult to do the relationship. Your ability to relate the theme means that you comprehended the theme that you want to discuss very well. That's why you can now relate it to practical experiences. That's why I wrote there, connect it to or connect to modern society, power, how does the power play in the story relate to power play in modern societies? How does maybe it's a story that has to do with, like, if you look at most of Chino Achebe's stories, Man of the People, okay, let me talk about Arrow of God, let me talk about Things Fall Apart, the famous one. They all look at power struggle, power between the colonial masters and the indigenous tradition of the people. So your ability to understand that, then now bring it to reality, bring it to the society that we find ourselves in today. Are there skirmishes of these things? Are there instances of these things in society today? So if you could do that, sorry for that, if you could do that, it means you are able or you have been able to comprehend whatever that you have done. Now, when you do all these things, then you are now ready to do a thematic analysis with a theme in mind. And I have a structure of your analysis. Every essay in literature should follow the format on the screen now. You need an introduction, you need a body, paragraphs, because it should be more than one. You need a conclusion. Introduction, that's where you introduce the text. In this case, you define clearly the theme. You try to summarize the theme, then you give your thesis statement. Thesis statement simply means what your essay is going to be about. So after defining power, after looking at a brief summary of the representation of the kind of power, which is the theme that the writer spoke about in this essay, or this essay will be concentrated on, then you are stating your thesis statement. That should be basically the last sentence for your introduction. Then the body paragraphs, you focus on one aspect with evidence and analysis at a time in a paragraph. So if you are looking at a negative impact of the theme, if you are looking at a positive impact of the theme, pick one idea with evidence from the text. Textual evidence. Textual evidence here could be direct quotations or paraphrasing, but there should be evidence, then example if possible. Then you do that. Then you move to another paragraph, another aspect. Do not clamps a lot of information in one paragraph. That will not make your write-up matured enough, intelligent enough, and help you score any proper mark. And do not forget, when there is a need for examples, you should always give examples. That's very important. Then you conclude. Conclusion here simply means that you restate your findings and reflect on things deeper meaning. That is, here you can bring your experience to bear. You can try to look at everything you have said and the impact you think it creates. So basically, this is what you go through if you want to do thematic analysis with a particular theme in mind. I will try to give you a practical analysis, but I think it will be easier for me to do that. I've read quite a number of books, and I don't know which ones will be relevant to you now. I'm not in any way suggesting that my books I've read are not relevant, but depending on your present needs, you need a practical analysis. So if you could give me suggestions of such, I'll be able to do that for you. So now I'll be doing, in the next video or in the next class, I'll be doing an analysis of a poem. I love poems. I love poems. I have a lot of favorite poems. That Shakespearean poem, Shall I Compare It to Summer's Day, is one of my favorite. Still I Rise by Maya Angelou. Oh, what a poem. Then The Road Not Taken. There are quite a number. If no suggestion comes from you in the comment sections, I'll just pick one of these poems and analyze it in our next lesson. Alright, so see you in the next class. Enjoy the video. Listen carefully. If you have any questions, leave the questions and I'll respond to it. Bye bye.